Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to translate the absolutely massive scale of the 2026 World Cup into a high-stakes proving ground for long-term, profitable energy infrastructure investments. To really put this into perspective for you, a single modern stadium can consume as much power during one match as an entire small city. So we aren't just looking at this as a cool milestone in sports history. No, we're looking at this through the lens of executive investment. What we've got here is a massive, real-world experiment in deploying capital into smart grids, advanced battery storage, and green hydrogen, all at an utterly unprecedented scale. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the ultimate stress test of the event itself. Then we'll move into the hybrid architecture and AI efficiency making it possible, explore networking virtual power plants, and finally, extract the blueprints for actual city infrastructure. So, let's dive right into Section 1, the ultimate infrastructure stress test, assessing the scale and operational risks of 2026. Now picture this. You've got 48 teams and literally millions of fans spread out across the US, Canada, and Mexico. That sheer scale creates some severe operational pressure. I mean, think about the requirements for a second. Massive stadium lighting, continuous climate control, thousands of flights, and sudden, intense EV charging spikes as people arrive. Traditional grids, they simply aren't designed to handle this kind of load without triggering massive spikes in both cost and carbon output.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting for executive planners. Notice how the severe financial risks of standard operations map directly to specific green mitigations. Standard operations represent a huge liability, right? Look at the left side. Fossil fuel supply chains are incredibly volatile. Peak demand triggers brutal premium pricing, and carbon compliance pressures, they're only mounting. But look over to the right. Green hydrogen replaces those vulnerable supply chains. Battery storage shaves off those expensive peak demand spikes, and solar directly offsets your daytime carbon pressures. It's a direct solution to a very expensive problem. Moving right along to Section 2, the hybrid energy architecture, mitigating supply chain volatility with cohesive assets. Instead of crossing our fingers and relying on vulnerable diesel generators or traditional grid feeds, this architecture leverages a powerful, resilient trio: solar, battery, and hydrogen. And here's why this matters. Many modern stadiums are already integrating solar panels and smart lighting, right? During the day, that solar production handles the stadium's load. But the actual matches, when power demand truly spikes, often happen at night. That's exactly where battery energy storage systems, or BESS, come into play. They store that daytime solar and release it during the match, which drastically lowers grid stress and totally reduces reliance on backup diesel. And for the really heavy lifting, we use green hydrogen. Unlike batteries, hydrogen provides that crucial long-duration storage and powers heavy transport, filling the gaps standard renewables just can't handle. So what this does is elevate those individual renewable components into a singular, highly investable system designed for total risk mitigation. A hybrid energy architecture isn't just about being green, it's a literal defense mechanism against supply chain volatility. By combining solar, battery, hydrogen, and smart grids, you drastically reduce your dependence on traditional fossil fuel backups. You're essentially creating a self-sustaining, resilient asset base that operates perfectly even when standard external networks falter. All right, Section 3, AI-managed distributed efficiency, the actual brain of the energy operation. This directly pits the old, reactive way of doing things against the superior financial efficiency of AI-managed distributed energy. Think about standard power reliance. It's inherently passive. It just sits there and reacts to demand spikes, leaving operations totally vulnerable and heavily reliant on backup fossil fuels. AI-managed efficiency, on the other hand, is predictive. It doesn't wait for a demand spike to occur. It actually anticipates it. It distributes energy exactly where it's needed, automatically balancing the grid to ensure absolutely zero wasted energy. And from an investment standpoint, eliminating waste translates directly to protecting your profit margins. Let's look at exactly how it pulls this off. Imagine an AI system actively forecasting exactly how many fans are arriving, literally down to the minute. It anticipates local weather to gauge solar production versus air conditioning needs, and proactively manages the massive surge when thousands of EVs all plug in simultaneously. The system seamlessly routes power from solar to battery to the grid, ensuring zero-stranded energy. It's like a brilliant conductor managing a massive orchestra. Which brings us to Section 4, networking virtual power plants, orchestrating disparate assets at massive scale. We can break down this somewhat dense concept of a virtual power plant, or VPP, into 4 really concrete steps that turn an energy sink into an active grid asset. First,
you generate locally with stadium solar. Second, you store it using battery and hydrogen reserves. Third, you orchestrate it all with AI. And fourth, you distribute it right where it's needed via smart grids. This fundamentally flips the financial model from a sunk consumption expense into a flexible, highly intelligent asset. This ensures that the massive energy infrastructure required for the event actually supports and stabilizes the broader regional grid. Here is the really wild, highly profitable idea. You don't just optimize one single building. You connect every stadium, every hotel, and every single charging station together. They act as one giant, unified energy system. During low demand, the entire network is quietly storing energy. And during peak demand, it dispatches energy exactly where it's needed most. The millions of football fans won't even notice, but in the background, AI is seamlessly orchestrating a virtual power plant that drastically reduces long-term operational financial risks. And finally, Section 5, Blueprints for City Infrastructure, scaling this 2026 pilot program for long-term ROI. You know the transportation and grid technologies being pressure tested in 2026? They're the exact same scalable solutions required for our future smart cities. Think about the infrastructure being built out for this single month. Renewable-powered metro systems, vast electric bus networks, widespread EV charging stations, and smart traffic optimization driven by AI. These aren't temporary pop-up installations. They are permanent capital assets. If they can handle the chaotic, unprecedented demand of a World Cup, they are thoroughly de-risked for standard daily urban use. This is the exact future smart city grid architecture researchers are currently developing, proving once and for all that carbon emission reduction perfectly aligns with modern, resilient global governance standards. It really comes down to this quote right here. 1 month of football could influence decades of energy innovation. Because what we're really witnessing isn't just a sporting event, it's a living blueprint for executives and city planners. The solutions deployed to keep the lights on and the buses running for these matches will permanently shift how we view long-term infrastructure investment. So I want to leave you with this thought. If a unified system of solar, battery storage, and green hydrogen, completely orchestrated by an AI-managed virtual power plant, can successfully power the largest, most demanding global event in history, isn't it time to view these exact technologies as the primary way to de-risk and future-proof your own city's infrastructure? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I encourage you to look at the next massive sporting event not just as a game, but as the future of energy, unfolding right in front of us.